Nishikata is a shy loner who can't look a girl in the eyes without shaking like a leaf, just like you. However, when the most popular girl in school starts playing pranks on him to tease him, he tries to get revenge but ends up falling in love with her instead. It all began when Nishikata was constructing a revenge toy prank for Takagi, after all the pranks she did to him. However, despite all the planning he does, just like any other day, Takagi outsmarts him, shocking him using a clown that springs out, and he yells so loud it's like someone just stubbed his toe, and the class freezes. The teacher tells him to zip it or he will be yeeted. Defeated, he shoves his failed prank away and begins plotting his next act of revenge against her. Then, Takagi hits him with a request, asking to borrow his eraser. He complies, only for her to follow it up with a question about that old rumor about how writing your crush's name on an eraser, and using it up, will turn your love into mutual. Nishikata calls it nonsense, but panic starts bubbling when Takagi starts looking through his eraser. Takagi drags it out, pretending to inspect the eraser even deeper. But before she finds anything, Nishikata freaks out and begs her to give it back. When he finally grabs it back and checks, there's nothing, and she got him again. He yells in frustration, and because this class has no chill, the teacher yeets a chalk at his head for his. The man threatens to silence him for good if he keeps disrupting the peace. Humiliated, Nishikata mumbles an apology and tells Takagi to stop laughing. She replies that teasing him is just too much fun. Then, Takagi asks to go to the bathroom, and that's when Nishikata sees her eraser left on her desk, thinking to himself that he got a jackpot. With evil intentions, he picks it up, ready to write something spicy. But then he sees it, there's already something written on it. His brain locks up, asking whether he should read it to find out who her crush is. Curiosity wins, and he peeks to reveal the first letters, L-O. He's immediately disappointed seeing that's not his name. But just to be sure, he pulls the eraser out fully, and instead of a name, there's a message telling him to look at the hallway. When he does, he sees Takagi, smirking at him from the corridor like the smug mastermind she is. She walks back in and says his shocked expression looks straight out of a horror movie. He groans in shame, muttering something about revenge, and she wishes him luck. But she mutters how ashamed that he didn't see the full picture, as in the other side of the eraser is Nishikata's name. The next day, Nishikata shows up early for class for his dreaded day duty. As he gets close to the school, he plans to prank Takagi's desk, but when he looks up, he spots Takagi watching him from the window, which destroys his plan. When he steps into the classroom, it's completely empty, which makes him suspicious, as he knows she's hiding somewhere. He sees her shoes under the teacher's desk, and determined not to fall for her tricks, he plays it cool and announces loudly that he's off to do chores. But something doesn't sit right. Takagi's too clever to leave her shoes poking out from under the desk, and it's obviously a trap. So Nishikata checks the classroom and hallway, convinced she's hiding in the cleaning closet. But when he flings it open, he finds nothing. Back at the teacher's desk, all he finds are her shoes. No sign of her anywhere. He slumps into his chair, dazed, and suddenly, the curtain behind him flies open, and she jumps out, scaring the soul out of his body. Takagi bursts out laughing, revealing she'd been behind the curtain the whole time, watching his wild goose chase. Embarrassed, Nishikata sulks. They both return to their seats, and Takagi comments that she hopes no one else shows up yet, so she can enjoy being alone with him. Her words send Nishikata into a mental tailspin, making his mind wander off. He stumbles through trying to ask her something, but before he does so, their classmates Mina, Yukari, and Sani walk in, shattering the moment. The girls start bickering about something or other, and Takagi reminds Nishikata he still hasn't done his chores. He bolts up and quickly gets them done. Later, in the boys' bathroom, Nishikata glares at his reflection and vents about how she always gets the better of him. A buddy of his, Nakai, walks in and assumes he's practicing goofy faces. When he asks Nishikata if he likes Takagi, Nishikata turns around with such a ridiculous expression that Nakai bursts into laughter and forgets the question entirely. Feeling triumphant, Nishikata returns to class with a new idea that he'll make Takagi laugh in front of the teacher and get her in trouble for once by using his goofy face. He waits for his moment, and when she leans over to ask for something, he makes his best funny face. To his surprise, Takagi doesn't laugh. Instead, she whips out her compact mirror and shows him what he looks like, causing Nishikata himself to start laughing, and promptly gets scolded by the teacher again. Takagi, still grinning, tells him his joke and face were unoriginal. Then she gives him pointers on how to make his goofy face look goofier, and he wonders why, despite wanting to prank her, he's more than willing to listen to her. For the final touch, she suggests that he turns to the side, and when he does, the teacher is right there, furious. He laughs for a little while and scolds Nishikata again. Takagi bursts out laughing, and Nishikata slams his head down on the desk, defeated once more. A few days later, during calligraphy class, their teacher gave the students a creative task of writing a word they like. But Takagi, ever the instigator, suggested she and Nishikata each write a word of what they wanted from the other, and Nishikata agrees. Once they're done, they exchange papers, and while Takagi's word is status quo, Nishikata's is restraint. Takagi raises an eyebrow, asking what kind of restraint Nishikata is expecting from her. Nishikata immediately realizes he's botched the delivery, and trying to explain would make him sound like a total idiot, so he pulls a classic move of changing the subject. He asks why she chose status quo, and with a smug little grin, Takagi says she wants things to stay the same, where he remains teasable as usual for her. Nishikata is annoyed by how evil this girl can be, so, determined to reclaim some dignity, he suggests they write another word. This time, he chooses kindness, secretly hoping she'll take the hint that she's evil. But before he can bask in his suggestion, Takagi compliments his handwriting out of nowhere. The unexpected praise stuns him into dropping his brush. She picks it up for him with a sweet smile and hands it back gently. And then, as if to completely scramble his brain, she leans in and wipes something off his cheek with her thumb. In that moment, Nishikata starts to doubt everything, questioning whether she is actually kind. Feeling oddly warm, he changes his word, and when it's time to show it, he reveals that he has written, "Stop teasing me." She nods and says that she'll try, which makes his day. But then she shows him her paper, and it says that, "You have ink on your face." Nishikata is confused at first, but that's when it clicks that she put the ink there and used her kindness to pull a beautifully executed, absolutely ruthless prank again, leaving him defeated. A week later, during English class, while not paying attention, the teacher calls on him, which leaves Nishikata like a deer in headlights. Takagi whispers 16 to him. He blurts it out without hesitation, and immediately takes a chalk to the forehead. The teacher scolds him, reminding this idiot that this is English class, not math. Takagi then explains that 16 was the line number he was supposed to translate, but Nishikata doesn't believe her for a second. She asks him if he has something on his mind, and teases him for thinking creamy, degenerate thoughts about her. Flustered, he assures her that he's thinking no such thing. However, she calls him out for plotting revenge against her for all the teasing she did, and while he denies her accusations, deep down, that's exactly his plan. He decides to distract her all the way until the teacher calls her, so she will end up like him. He starts asking what she had for breakfast, all the way to what her favorite gooning video is. Then, the moment comes when the teacher calls for her to answer a question, and Nishikata smirks, thinking she's dead meat. But to his surprise, she nails the answer flawlessly with no hesitation. Devastated, he starts brainstorming his next plan. She asks him again if he's thinking about her, and while he tells her again that he wasn't, to his shock, she rizzes him up, saying that she's always thinking about him. The following day, the class has swimming lessons, but Nishikata is stuck on the sidelines with an injured hand. He's sulking in the shade when Takagi appears beside him and asks how he got hurt. He mumbles something vague. Then, out of the blue, she guesses that he got his hand injured from trying to pet a stray cat. He is in shock and stares at her like she's telepathic. She laughs, telling him it was just a guess. Desperate to change the topic, he asks why she isn't swimming like the others. Then he remembers a little wisdom from his friend Takao, who told him that girls don't swim during their period. And since Takagi is holding her stomach, he suspects bleeding from her clam to be the reason. Takagi challenges him to guess, since she guessed his reason so easily, but Nishikata hesitates, as he's not bold enough to say the real reason out loud. She grins, saying that she has won, and Nishikata hates losing, so he builds up the nerve to say it. But then, a warning light goes off in his brain, warning him that she might be baiting him. He tries to think of another reason, but nothing comes to mind. She asks him if he's really looking for an answer, or if he is too locked in staring at their female classmates' melons like a cultured degenerate.
Come on, man.
Nishikata swears he's not doing that, but when he glances back at her, a dangerous thought slips in. He suspects that the reason she's not swimming might be because she's self-conscious about her lack of curves. But he knows saying that would be a death sentence, so he awkwardly blurts out his first theory of her having her period. She tells him it's wrong and that it's rude to assume things like that. He tries to apologize, but she's already laughing. Suddenly, she unzips her jacket, revealing her swimsuit. She adds that she's also not insecure about her lack of plots and asks the teacher to let her swim. Nishikata stares in disbelief and realizes that she was always going to swim, but she stayed behind only to tease him, just so she could see him squirm. He watches her join the others in the pool, completely defeated. Some days later, Nishikata is walking home from school when Takagi pulls up beside him on her bike and casually suggests they head home together. He agrees, and they stroll down the road like it's nothing. Halfway through, she glances at the juice he's sipping and asks if it's any good. Being the gentleman he thinks he is, he offers her a taste. She takes the can without hesitation, and just before she drinks, Nishikata smirks and comments that this is technically an indirect kiss. He expects her to blush, panic, maybe even flinch. But to his surprise, Takagi drinks without batting an eye. She hands the can back, and he stares at the spot her lips just touched like it's the sweet spot. She asks him if he's not gonna drink, and while nervous, he assures her that he will. Right before the liquid hits his lips, Takagi tells him that it will be an indirect kiss, and Nishikata yelps, flinches, and drops the can like it's a live grenade. He quickly picks it up and throws it into a nearby trash can, which, to his surprise, flushes right in. Takagi compliments him for the throw, and Nishikata tests his skill again by yeeting another can, and to his surprise, he swishes it in like prime curry. He's in disbelief with his newfound talent, but when Takagi also gives it a try, she misses completely. Nishikata uses it as ammo to mock her aim, but she proposes a rematch, and the first to make the next basket wins. Cocky and overconfident, Nishikata agrees and even ups the stakes that if she wins, he'll do whatever she wants. Takagi smirks, telling him not to go back on his word when he loses. She tosses her can, and when it sinks in, Nishikata is in shock, as now the pressure is on him. He picks up another can, composes himself, and is ready to even the score. But just as he's about to shoot, Takagi drops a bomb, telling him that if he wins, she will let him have her first kiss. In that moment, his soul briefly leaves his body, and the can flies completely off target like he's Shaq from the free throws. He collapses to his knees as Takagi cheers for her win, giggling like the evil mastermind she is. As they continue walking, Nishikata's mind spirals, questioning what kind of diabolical thing she is going to make him do. But suddenly, she stops and says she doesn't really want anything from him. And that makes it worse for Nishikata, who now feels like Takagi will always be one up over him. Later at home, Nishikata overhears on his television David Goggins yapping about how he does push-ups as punishment to make himself a winner. After hearing that, Nishikata decides to do push-ups himself, and when it gets difficult, he pushes through all the way till he's sore, convinced he'll become Saitama in no time and take down Takagi once and for all.
It's payback time.
The next day at school, he's walking like an old man. His arms are sore, but he tries to play it cool. Takagi notices immediately and asks if he's okay. He lies, saying that he's fine. Just then, she pokes his arm, and when he flinches, she laughs. When she finally stops giggling, she asks what's up with him, and he admits he started working out. Takagi raises an eyebrow and mocks him, saying that he will give up in 3 days. But Nishikata vows to prove her wrong and continues his training after school. Back home, after Takagi teased him 23 times, he decides to do 23 push-ups. A few days later, as they're walking home again, Takagi checks in with his workouts, and he tells her that he's still not stopping. She expresses how impressed she is after thinking he would quit. But then she says something that shakes his soul, that if he trains too much, it might stunt his growth. Nishikata freezes, panicking over the idea of Takagi growing taller than him, and starts teasing him for being a midget. Before he can panic further, she smiles and tells him not to worry, saying that it's just a rumor. She adds a compliment, saying that he looks muscular already from all his training. His face immediately turns red, and steam practically pours from his ears. She teases him for blushing, but tells him once more that she wasn't lying when she said that she admired his muscles. The next day, after school, it starts raining out of nowhere. Nishikata notices Takagi still sitting at her desk, and asks if she's not going home. She reveals that she forgot to bring her umbrella, and Nishikata bursts into laughter, throwing a few jabs at her, calling her forgetful. It yields no reaction from Takagi, but instead, she asks him to share his umbrella with her. As they walk home together under the umbrella, Nishikata's brain starts frying. To any outsider, they look like a couple, and that thought alone makes his heart race. Desperate to break the tension, he spots a frog on a nearby fence, grabs it, and tries to spook her. Instead of freaking out, Takagi takes the frog, cradles it, and says it's adorable. Nishikata silently wonders what kind of crack this girl is on to be not afraid of frogs, but suddenly he feels something slimy on his shoulder. It's the frog, and he screams while she laughs. As they continue walking, she notices that his shoulder is getting wet because he's been tilting the umbrella toward her side. Not wanting him to catch a cold, she scoots closer and presses herself onto him, causing his heart to start beating heavily. To get his mind off it, he brings back the topic of her being forgetful, and to his surprise, she admits that she's forgetful, which makes Nishikata feel that he won today. However, Takagi takes that opportunity and uses being forgetful as an excuse to ask him things, saying that she forgot what they are. She starts by asking the things people do when they touch lips, all the way to asking about the things dudes do when they touch tips.
I'm just about to go to bed.
With every question she throws, Nishikata blushes even harder. Lastly, she tells him that being forgetful, she doesn't know what the word is to describe someone's passionate emotion towards another person, and she keeps pushing him to tell her that he loves her, which makes him tweaking until the rain stops. He excuses himself to go home as she doesn't need the umbrella anymore, but being forgetful, she asks him to take her home, which he does reluctantly. Days later, Nishikata gets summoned to the teacher's office for his latest outbursts, which disturbed the class. After a thorough scolding, the teacher assigns him the punishment duty of cleaning the science room after school. Nishikata thinks it's a bit much for one person, but he doesn't complain. He drags himself to the room, muttering under his breath how Takagi should have been punished as well. But when he opens the supply closet, Takagi jump scares him, and startles him so badly he nearly watched a Michael Jackson concert. Takagi just giggles as she steps out and lets him get the brooms. He asks her if she's also punished like him, but instead of answering, she suggests they make the chore more interesting by turning it into a game. Nishikata asks what she has in mind. She suggests playing rock, paper, scissors, with the loser cleaning a quarter of the room alone. He hesitates, but then thinks that if he wins 4 times, he doesn't have to do anything. He agrees to her game, and just as they begin, Takagi reveals she's using rock. That throws Nishikata's brain into chaos, thinking it's a fake, so he picks scissors and ends up losing. So he goes and cleans a quarter of the room, and while he's stuck cleaning, Nakai and Mano pass by and stop at the door. Nakai raises an eyebrow, asking why he's cleaning the science room. Nishikata explains his situation, and when he sees Takagi, he teasingly asks why both of them are there. Nishikata doesn't think too hard about it, but Mano starts blushing and quickly pulls away Nakai with her to go somewhere, not wanting to disturb Takagi. As soon as they're gone, Takagi informs Nishikata that the two of them are a couple. Nishikata's jaw drops, and he admits that while he's seen them together a lot, he never connected the dots. Takagi suggests that they probably snuck off to the rooftop for some hanky-panky.
Yeah, boy.
And she expresses how the two of them are truly enjoying their youth. Then, they play 3 more rounds of rock, paper, scissors, and Nishikata loses every single one, forcing him to clean the whole room. Before leaving, she reveals that she wasn't punished to clean the science room like him. And when Nishikata asks her why she's with him, she expresses how she's enjoying her youth in her own way, causing Nishikata to fold. Later, as they walk home, Takagi suggests grabbing drinks, but adds that they should compete, and that whoever loses has to pay. Nishikata agrees, but this time, he chooses the game. He spots some playground bars and decides on a kickover challenge. He's sure of his win because he randomly pulled one off once and felt like he's a god ever since. When Takagi points out that she's wearing a skirt, he thinks she's going to forfeit, but he refuses and agrees to play, as long as he looks the other way when she does it, or he will be considered forfeiting. Grumbling, he turns his back, and while he's not looking, she swings up with ease and declares that she did it. Still suspicious, Nishikata tries his own kickover, succeeds, and insists they go again. Takagi agrees, and as she prepares, his curiosity gets the best of him, and he peeks. To his shock, not only does she land the kickover perfectly, but she's also wearing shorts under her skirt. He quickly turns away and pretends nothing happened, but guilt eats him alive. He admits what he did and accepts defeat by buying her juice. He asks her why he didn't let him look if she knows she's wearing shorts, and instead of answering, she simply calls him Diddy's disciple.
What?
She walks off, and he scrambles after her, trying to explain himself while she teases him mercilessly. That night, Nishikata stays up too late binging on a romance anime with his air conditioner on full blast, and in the morning, he wakes up with a cold and has to skip school. In class, Takagi keeps glancing at his empty seat. Just when she starts to pay attention again, he walks in. The teacher checks if he's well enough to be at school, and Nishikata gives a weak thumbs up. When Takagi asks the same, he does a dramatic hair flip and announces that he's fine. She immediately guesses he stayed up watching the romance anime, 100% Unrequited Love, and he's shocked at how she knows that. Before he can respond, a piece of chalk smacks him in the head, and the teacher tells him to zip it, and Takagi giggles at his misfortune. She notices he's still coughing and asks if he's okay, but he brushes it off. However, deep down, he's prepping to execute the genius plan he dreamed up while watching anime, and that is to strike a dramatic pose so cool it melts Takagi's heart. However, to his disappointment, Takagi doesn't react, and instead she doesn't teases at all like usual, which confuses him. However, when Nishikata looks closely, he gets flustered seeing her face, her eyes, as everything suddenly feels different when Takagi is quiet. He questions whether he's catching feelings, and he starts blushing. Takagi notices and asks if he has a fever, but he assures her that he's fine. Still suspicious, she keeps prodding and wanting her to stop. He blurts out that he never had a cold, and she expresses her happiness and states that she will now start teasing him like usual. And she does. Some days later, Mina drags Yukari and Sani to a snack shop to get a sweet potato ice pop. But just as they near the shop, Yukari freezes and points, showing that Nishikata and Takagi are there together. Yukari suggests turning back, as she assumes the two are on a date and doesn't want to disturb them. Mina, however, grabs Sani and charges forward. After a brief exchange, the girls say goodbye and leave. However, Yukari proposes they tail the pair to get proof. Unfortunately, they all failed stealth mode. Takagi notices the tail instantly and whispers to Nishikata to change course. The girls try to follow, but just like ninjas, the duo vanishes. They question where they disappeared to, but decide to give up and go home. Meanwhile, hidden next to a utility pole surrounded by bushes, Nishikata and Takagi hold their breath until the coast is clear. Once it's safe, Takagi suggests that they race, and she runs without warning, leaving Nishikata chasing after her with his bike. A week goes by, and Nishikata finds himself abandoned in the library. His friends have decided they've studied enough and head out to play, but he stays behind. Jealousy nags at him, but he brushes it aside. He knows his intellect is on par with a pebble, so he forces himself to keep studying. Out of nowhere, Takagi appears and asks if she can sit with him. He lets her sit, and once she's settled in, she asks why he's not out playing with the others. He tells her his parents threaten to confiscate his video games if he fails his tests. The moment the words leave his mouth, he panics, as oversharing with Takagi is never safe, and she'll definitely use it against him. He quickly tells her not to mess with him while he's studying. She smiles sweetly and agrees, but adds that teasing him is her favorite pastime. A few minutes later, he notices the book she's reading isn't even a textbook. When he asks about it, she shrugs and says she's already done her daily 2 hours of study, as it's her routine. Nishikata's impressed, but not fooled, thinking that she has something planned like she always does. When she catches him staring, she asks why he's staring. Realizing he's just made himself look like a lovesick doofus, he tries to recover. But Takagi cuts him off and points to his notebook, saying that he's wrong. She scoots her chair over and starts explaining where he went wrong with his answer. Nishikata listens, grateful for the help but still suspicious. He finally asks why she's so suddenly nice to him. She expresses how she's afraid that his grades might drop because of her teasing all the time, so she wants to make it up to him by teaching him. When he hears that, Nishikata feels happy to see Takagi changing her ways. That evening, as they walk home together, Nishikata thanks her for the tutoring. But to his shock, she informs him that everything she taught him won't be in the test, and he quickly begs her to teach him. Later, when the results are handed out, the teacher praises Takagi for her flawless test. Nishikata gets his results next, and to his horror, he scores below average, and blames Takagi for not teaching him the correct materials. Just then, Takagi suggests a little game where they guess each other's scores. Takagi goes first and guesses below 60, which is close. Nishikata freezes and tries to play it cool using his poker face. She settles on 56, and he springs to his feet with a smirk, showing her the test proudly. A piece of chalk nails him in the head, and the teacher scolds him about his public display of idiocy. Embarrassed, he sinks back into his seat. Now it's his turn to guess Takagi's score. She gives him a handicap that if he's within 2 points, he wins. He remembers the teacher's praise and assumes she must have scored above 90. He tosses out a number, 92. Takagi's eyes widen ever so slightly, which is suspicious. Assuming she's bluffing, he goes with 97. She shows him her paper, and it says 92 in bold, red ink. He collapses into his seat like a deflated balloon, and she mocks him for not believing her enough. That weekend, Nishikata visits the bookstore to buy the latest issue of Unrequited Love. He shoves it into his bag like it's contraband and hurries outside, only to bump into Takagi. She asks what he bought, and he quickly lies, saying he bought the new Johnny Sins comic. Not wanting her to know he bought a romance comic. Takagi gives him a suspicious look and asks to see it. He panics, saying reasons why she can't see it. Then Speed walks away. She catches up and insists they walk home together. As they walk, she casually asks if he bought Unrequited Love, and he nearly drops his bag in shock, asking her how she knows. She tells him she saw him buying it while standing outside the store, and he realizes she's been playing him the whole time. Desperate, he begs her to keep his romance manga obsession secret, not wanting to be made fun of. Takagi promises to take his secret to the grave, but Nisakata is suspicious of how easily she agrees. To earn his trust, she offers to tell him a secret of her own, just so he can feel safe. He agrees, and she leans in, whispering tenderly into his ear, telling him that she likes him. Nishikata freezes, and his brain stops responding. She bursts out laughing, telling him that it was a lie that she told him after he lied to her about buying a Johnny Sins comic. The following week, because of the rain, the duo takes shelter at a shrine. Nishikata notices Takagi's shirt is soaked, making her innerwear faintly visible, and he quickly averts his gaze, praying she didn't catch him looking. To distract himself, he brings up how he can't wait to watch his favorite anime at home, and Takagi teases him about being obsessed with Unrequited Love, and he reminds her that she swore not to tell anyone. She shrugs, saying that no one's there. She then pulls out her gym shirt to change into something dry, only to realize it's damp too. She turns to Nishikata and asks for his gym shirt instead. While she changes behind him, Nishikata uses every bit of his willpower to fight every instinct not to peek at her. Once she's changed, she offers him to bet against her that the rain will stop before the town clock hits 5 o'clock, and if it does, he has to do anything she wants. He takes the bet, betting that it wouldn't stop. As they wait, a drenched stray cat wanders over. Takagi reaches for it, and Nishikata warns her it might scratch. Instead, the cat shakes itself and absolutely soaks Nishikata. Takagi offers him her gym shirt, and when he puts it on, he gives it a sniff to capture her scent for his night fun, creamy routine.
Yeah, boy.
Just then, the rain stops, and because it's before 5, Takagi turns to him with a wicked smile, telling him to get ready for the bet, and he tells her to continue hanging out with her, which destroys his whole plan of watching his anime at home. A few days later, the teacher announces the summer break, and the students are roaring in excitement. Then, Nishikata walks home with Takagi, chattering excitedly about all the epic fun he's planning for summer break. But unlike him, she's a bit sad that she won't get to see him during the summer break. Up ahead, Nakai is pedaling along with Mono perched behind him, the picture of young love on 2 wheels. Takagi notices the sudden quiet, and asks Nishikata if he wants to try tandem riding with her. Nishikata refuses, now wanting to get clapped by a car or truck kun who'll send them off to meet a powerful slime. Takagi points out that they're nowhere near a major road and suggests they swing by the vacant lot and try it anyway. Once there, she sweetens the deal that if he can't pull it off, he owes her a can of juice. Nishikata gives it a go, but moving the bike proves harder than expected, as he forgot to train his chicken legs. When he starts blaming her for throwing off his balance, she casually mentions that the last time she rode tandem with a guy, it went perfectly, unlike with Nishikata and his weak legs. That lights a fire in him, and now he's pedaling like his pride's on the line, as he wants to outshine whoever that guy was. Then she drops the truth that the guy was his dad, and instantly, Nishikata swerves and loses control. Since he lost the bet, he buys her a can of juice. But when he tries to grab one for himself, he discovers he's broke with no money in his wallet. Takagi notices and asks if he's not getting one for himself, and he lies, unwilling to admit he's broke. She tries handing him her can for a sip, but he refuses, not wanting to mooch off her or have an indirect kiss. However, she buys him a new can of juice anyway, and with sweat pouring down his face, he accepts it. After they finish, Takagi proposes they meet at the lot every day for summer break, until noon to practice tandem riding. Nishikata agrees, wanting to learn how to tandem ride, and Takagi expresses how she can't wait for summer break, knowing she'll be spending it with him. The next day, it starts raining, but by noon, the skies are clear, and true to their promise, Nishikata goes to the lot. When Takagi shows up, Nishikata gets rizzed up by how pretty she looks. However, because the place is flooded, Takagi suggests that they go somewhere else to spend time, and Nishikata can't help but see it as a date. He agrees, and she leads him to an old, abandoned tunnel. Just looking at it is enough to make Nishikata get scared. Takagi proposes a test of courage and says that people who drive through the tunnel would randomly crash into the walls, and she suspects that an evil spirit lives in there. Nishikata is rattled by her words, but puts on a brave face and charges inside the tunnel. which surprises him with how dark it is despite being noon. She points to a talisman stuck on the wall, telling him that it's proof that ghosts are living there. Suddenly, a drop of water echoes, and Nishikata jumps, while she laughs. Takagi then gestures to an empty barrel and asks him to check inside. He tries to decline, but the second she calls him a coward, he goes for it. He peers inside, and right then, she lets out a blood-curdling scream, scaring the manliness out of him and shrinking his jewels. But when he spins around to look for her, she's gone. Now full-blown panicking, he starts calling her name, to no answer. The fear ramps up, questioning what if Diddy's spirit got to her. Then something taps his shoulder. He turns and screams in her face. Takagi casually asks what he's so scared of, and he insists he's not scared. Before they leave, she points to a hole in the wall, and Nishikata sees his chance to turn the tables. He sticks his hand into the hole and starts yelling like something's grabbing him. But Takagi doesn't bite, and when he looks back at her, she's holding a metal shard up to reflect the dim light, calling his name with a spooky voice. He screams again, and they walk out, having had enough. But as they step outside, some stupid kids call them out for dating inside the tunnel. Takagi teases Nishikata about them being on a date, and he can't help but get flustered. A few days later, Nishikata has a horrible day and is now out grocery shopping when he spots Takagi walking all alone. He follows her quietly, thinking that this might be the perfect opportunity to uncover some dark secret of hers. She turns a corner and, for a moment, he's sure she's noticed him. But then he sees her hat peeking out from behind a wall and believes that she's getting ready to surprise her. He sneaks towards her, but it's a trap, and when he grabs the hat, he finds it's perched on the wall as a decoy. Suddenly, Takagi leaps out of the bushes and scares him. She laughs and asks where he's going. When he tells her that he's buying groceries, she suggests they go together. Suddenly, a bug flits past her face. She yelps and stumbles, nearly falling. Nishikata tries to catch her, but falls to the ground and scrapes his knee instead. She insists they head to the park to clean up. While rinsing it off, he expresses how he has had a bad day, and now it's worse with his injury, making it the worst summer vacation ever for him. She offers him her handkerchief, which has her name to tie around it, and he accepts it. Then, she plays in the water to feel how cool it is and thanks him for trying to catch her fall earlier, even though he fell. Then, she tells him to join her in the water and expresses that she had a great summer. When he asks why, she tells him that it's because she gets to spend it with him, which makes him blush. That weekend, Nishikata swings by the mall to buy the latest issue of Unrequited Love. When he exits the store, fate smacks him in the face in the form of Takagi, who's also there. Before she can ask about what he bought, he quickly takes control of the conversation, asking her why she's at the mall. She says casually that she's there to buy a swimsuit. That sentence alone short-circuits Nishikata's brain, and he stares at her like someone just paused his internal CPU. Then, she asks him what kind of swimsuit he likes. Flustered, he tells her that he likes any swimsuit. When he tries to get away from her, she stops him and simply asks him to let her borrow the new Unrequited Love issue that he just bought.
I got you, homie!
He starts panicking, wondering how she knows. Nishikata denies everything, saying that he didn't buy that, and Takagi presses further, asking what he did buy. Thinking quickly, he blurts out that he bought a manga about robot zombies, thinking that she wouldn't be interested. However, she refuses to believe it and insists that he bought the Unrequited Love comic and is trying to hide it. Again, Nishikata panics, but after all his experiences, he sets a trap of his own. He challenges her that if she can guess correctly, he will do anything she asks him to do, thinking that it would make her nervous. But to his horror, she calmly guesses that he bought the new Unrequited Love issue. He pulls the manga from his bag in defeat to show her, and she cheers like she's won the lottery, while Nishikata stands there questioning his life decisions. Embarrassed beyond belief, he turns to leave, but Takagi reminds him of their deal and that he has to do what she asks him to do, and she orders her to help her pick a swimsuit, which makes Nishikata panic. At the store, he's stiff as a board, unable to even glance at the swimwear section without wanting to cream. She shows him a two-piece swimsuit and asks for his opinion. Wanting things to end quickly, he simply tells her that it's nice, but to his horror, she goes to try it on. When she steps out wearing the swimsuit, she asks if she looks good. Nishikata turns red and simply tells her that he has no opinion. She laughs and heads back in to try on another one. When he groans in protest, she declares that she will keep going and try on different swimsuits until he says that she looks good. Moments later, she pops her head out and asks him to pass her another swimsuit. As he grabs one, he can't help but wonder whether she's wearing anything in that moment. However, that thought vanishes fast when the curtain slips and she's fully dressed. But he's still annoyed she let him think like that, knowing she did it on purpose. He prays that none of his friends see him here with Takagi. But then, his fear comes to life when Nakai and Mano appear on the other side of the store. Soon after, Takagi peeks out of the dressing room to ask Nishikata something, only to find Mano and Nakai standing there, and Nishikata disappears. Mano waves excitedly, while Nakai looks away, clearly flustered. Takagi spots Nishikata's flip-flops under the dressing room curtain next door and realizes he's there. When Mano realizes too, she grabs Nakai's arm and pulls him away, not wanting to disturb Takagi. Once the coast is clear, Takagi pulls open Nishikata's curtain, telling him that he can come out. When he steps out, she tells him to stop being embarrassed and asks him to pick which swimsuit fits her best. Wanting this to end quickly, Nishikata just nods at everything she holds up, giving his approval. Seeing this, Takagi decides to take full advantage and asks him to go swimming with her. Without thinking, Nishikata agrees and then realizes what he just agreed to. But it's too late, and Takagi declares that it will be a date. A few days later, after their tandem writing session, Takagi suggests doing homework at the library. Nishikata is about to refuse until she offers to let him copy hers. However, they don't know where to do it, and Takagi casually suggests that they go to his place. Once there, Takagi surveys the room and finds his romance comics. Embarrassed, he tells her not to look and gets too close to her face. She calls him out for liking it, and while he thinks about the situation they're in, Takagi refers to the comic book. Then, she suggests that they sit on the same chair to study at his desk, and he gets flustered by that idea. But then, she declares the bed will be their study table.
Let's go.
Nishikata's brain starts tweaking, but he snaps out of it when Takagi clarifies that they'll be using the bed like a desk. Before they begin, he double-checks their promise, and she assures him that he can copy her homework. But to his annoyance, she tells him that she only brought her kanji textbook. He calls her a villain in disguise, and she laughs. They begin studying, and at one point, both reach for the eraser at the same time, and their hands touch. Immediately, Nishikata flashes back to a scene from Unrequited Love that escalates very quickly from an innocent touch. His mind spirals, but Takagi casually pulls back and apologizes for reaching. Trying to cool off, he rushes to grab her a drink, and while she's alone, she smiles, looking around his room thoroughly. Later, once they're finished, Takagi thanks him for the hospitality and heads home, telling him that she will come again, and he decides to clean his room after hearing that. Just a few days before the new school term kicks off, Nishikata and Takagi find themselves once again at the vacant lot for more tandem riding practice. Before they start, Nishikata tells Takagi to hold on tight. She gently wraps her arms around him, and as he begins pedaling, his mind drifts back to their earlier, much clumsier attempts. Back then, her sudden grab had startled him so badly he nearly crashed the bike. He accused her of tickling him, and she calmly pointed out that she wasn't, and that it was just his ultra-sensitive ribs doing their thing. Embarrassed, he tried to regain control of the situation by asking her to adjust how she held him and not hold his stomach. When she noticed his flushed face, she asked if he was embarrassed, and he blamed the heat. To settle things, Takagi hopped off and told him to demonstrate how she should hold on. He nervously climbed into the back seat, rested his hands lightly on her shoulders, and probably prayed to every deity that she didn't notice how awkward he felt. Back in the present, Nishikata rides like a champ. That is, until Takagi casually mentions they don't need to practice anymore, because they've already mastered it. He slams the brakes, startled. She looks over her shoulder and asks if he's sad they won't be spending time like this anymore. He says he is, and when he flips the question back at her, she replies with a straight face that she won't be, which hurts his feelings a little. Before they part ways, she suggests they meet up at the library to finish their homework. School's back in session, and on his way there, Nishikata faces a powerful typhoon. Instead of hurrying to class, he stretches his arms out, pretending like he's airbending like the Avatar. Just then, Takagi sees the whole thing, and he quickly lowers his arms, trying to play it cool, saying that he was just checking the wind. However, Takagi refuses not to tease him and mimics his airbending wizard performance with dramatic flair. Mortified, he tries to shift the subject, and she plays along, asking if he notices anything different. He squints and says she's not riding her bike. She tells him he's correct and asks him to guess why, but she adds that if he guesses correctly, she won't tell anyone about his airbending performance. He hesitates as the obvious answer is the weather, as it's dangerous to ride during a typhoon, but then he considers the possibility that it has something to do with her skirt. He chooses the second option, but she tells him it's wrong and that it was the first option. He He's stunned, seeing that it really was that simple. A few days later, their class gears up for a marathon. Nishikata is visibly hyped, which catches Kimura's attention. When he asks why, Takagi pulls over and asks him if he's sure about racing her. He's confident and says yes. After she walks away, Kimura nudges him, asking if they're dating or anything. Nishikata snaps, telling him that he's not dating her, and walks away, stomping off like someone just accused him of a felony. When the race starts, Nishikata focuses hard, keeping a consistent pace and replaying all those hours of practice. He's convinced he's got the win in the bag, until Takagi jogs up beside him and casually mentions she's been holding back to give him a head start. She runs off ahead of him, so he speeds up, determined to prove her wrong and that he can defeat her. She raises the stakes that if he touches her, she'll admit defeat. He picks up the pace and gets in touching distance, but as he's about to do so, he hesitates, not wanting others to see him touching her. So instead, he flips the challenge, saying that if she runs 50 meters ahead of him, she wins. She agrees, and he thinks he's outsmarted her. But to his horror, he realizes girls are supposed to turn back at a certain point in the route, which means she's already won. Later that day, as they walk home, Takagi pokes his ribs, and when he yelps, she laughs at him for having ticklish ribs. But Nishikata thinks to himself that everyone has ticklish ribs. That gives him an idea, and he challenges her, saying that the first to laugh loses and has to do whatever the winner says. She agrees, and he figures he has the upper hand since she's using both hands to push her bike, but she warns him she isn't ticklish. She tells him to go ahead and try, and then she pokes him again. He holds it in, but the mental war begins with Nishikata questioning whether she should poke her back or will he be reported to the FBI.
FBI, open up!
She sees the hesitation and teases him, saying that if he doesn't poke her, she'll poke him again. He panics, and just as he's processing that bombshell, she makes a ridiculous face that cracks him, causing him to laugh. She smiles in her victory, and as his punishment, she tells him to try and poke her. He's hesitant, but she assures him it's fine. So he gives her a light poke, and, to his amazement, she doesn't flinch. They continue walking, and she casually mentions that while her ribs aren't ticklish, her armpits are, but he refuses to go there. A few days pass, and Nishikata finally gets his hands on a new phone he has been wanting for a long time.
You know what time it is?
The next morning, he wastes no time collecting his friend's emails, and when he sits at his desk, Takagi asks to see the phone. He hands it over, assuming that she'll ask for his email next, and he plans to use it to prank her. But to his surprise, she doesn't. On their way home, he can't shake the thought of why she didn't ask for his email, as his genius plan to tease her won't work if he can't even message her. After several mental spirals and a silent meltdown, it hits him that he could have just asked her, but he refuses to sound desperate doing it. So, in classic Nishikata fashion, he tries to casually fish for her email without looking like a hopeless simp. When he finally brings it up, Takagi smirks and accuses him of looking for an excuse to chat with her outside school. But out of embarrassment, Nishikata accidentally reveals his whole plan of teasing her through text messages. She laughs at his idiotic outburst, but still gives him her email. Then, before they part ways, she asks if he'll help her with cleaning duty next week, and he agrees without thinking. Days later, true to his word, Nishikata shows up for cleaning. While wiping the board, Takagi notices he looks drained and asks if he stayed up too late texting. He admits it, and she confesses that she was the same when she got her first phone, always staying up late to message someone. Nishikata's curiosity goes into overdrive, and he asks her who she was texting. She dodges the question at first, but promises to spill if he tells her what he was texting about with his friends. Seizing the chance to turn the tables, Nishikata sends her a spooky video Kimura had shared, a classic internet jump scare featuring a possessed-looking goat and its tweaking transformation. Takagi opens the link, but then shows him her screen, which, to his shock, is a scandalous image of a woman looking spicy. Nishikata panics, insists he didn't send that, and defends his honor as a totally innocent man. Takagi lets him squirm a bit longer before revealing she was just trolling and that she tricked him. Then she actually watches the goat video, and while Nishikata has high hopes of her being scared, she simply shrugs it off, saying that it's scary, but the daylight takes the fear away. He's disappointed his plan flopped, but he's still dying to know who she was texting back then. She draws out the suspense, keeping him guessing, until finally revealing that it's her cousin. That night, Nishikata finishes his push-ups and prepares to send her an even scarier video. But before he can, Takagi calls him on his phone. He answers, pretending not to sound eager, but she calls his plan out, asking whether he was planning to send her more scary videos, and he lies, saying that he wasn't. Then, she tells him that she's heading to bed soon and admits something that catches him off guard about how talking to him makes her heart flutter. That leaves him stunned into silence, and they chat a little longer before she says goodnight, but doesn't hang up. He waits for her to hang up, but she explains that he's the one supposed to be hanging up. He hesitates, and neither of them wants to be first, so she suggests counting to 2 and doing it together. But even then, no one hangs up. Takagi finally teases him, claiming he just loves hearing her voice. Once he's thoroughly embarrassed, she laughs and ends the call. The next day, as they're walking home, Nishikata spots 2 cats fighting. He dashes to capture the moment with his phone, but by the time he raises his phone, the cats vanish, and all he gets is a blurry shot of a wall. When she asks why he's suddenly into photography, he explains that he and his friends are in a photo competition on who can get the best picture. She asks who's winning, and he shows her a picture of Kimura in a goofy costume that's currently unbeatable. Takagi offers a suggestion to him, telling him to take a funny photo. He gets an idea and begs her to make a funny face, knowing that he will win with that. Initially, she refuses, but then she agrees as long as she follows whatever she asks. Nishikata gets nervous at her request, and they continue walking, but then, without warning, she stops, turns, and makes the weirdest face imaginable. Nishikata bursts out laughing, and she tells him that he completely missed his chance to snap the photo. When he begs for a redo, she refuses. He tries to guilt her into it, but instead of caving, she pops a toy snake at him out of nowhere, and he yelps in fear. Takagi laughs so hard and proudly announces that she took pictures of his scared expression. He demands she delete them, but she refuses. He sighs and decides to take a picture of her too, but at the last second, she strikes a perfect pose, resulting in a great photo. Desperate, he offers a trade to delete his photos, and he'll delete hers, but she declines and says he can keep the picture. As she walks off toward home, she glances back and tells him not to show it to anyone, as it's embarrassing. Nishikata looks at the photo one more time and thinks of deleting it, but deep down, something tells him that he wants to keep it, so he decides to keep it just in case. A few weeks roll by, and Nishikata, lost deep in his thoughts, walks straight into a pole. Without missing a beat, he apologizes to the pole, thinking it's a person. Just then, Takagi rolls up beside him, and he silently prays she didn't witness the collision, but judging by her unreadable expression, he suspects that she might be saving it to tease him later. They head to school together, side by side, and Takagi casually asks him if he wants to tandem ride together. Nishikata immediately declines, not wanting people to get the wrong idea. As they walk, she mentions that his uniform fits better than when he first wore it, and something about it hanging less loosely. Nishikata glances at his sleeves, realizes she's right, and begins bragging about his muscles and growth spurt. He mocks her for not growing, unlike him. Takagi shoots him a sharp look, asking him if he's harassing her. When he looks at her flat boards, he panics, clarifying that he meant her height, not anything else. But she tells him that if he really wants to know whether she's grown, they should check. Instead of continuing on to school, they detour to the shrine so they can compare heights without anyone seeing. Shoes off, backs pressed together, they try to measure their height difference. Nishikata is momentarily distracted by how soft she feels behind him, but snaps back to reality when she says they're the same height. He protests, refusing to believe that she's the same height. She tells him to check himself, so he does, and to his dismay, it's true. But he still accuses her of standing on her tiptoes. Takagi spins around and stands close in front of him, telling him to measure again. Her folds with how close she is, but manages to take a proper measurement, and, at last, confirms he's a few inches taller. Takagi admits she was cheating a little earlier, and he calls her out for being a liar. However, she tells him that she doesn't mind being shorter, as long as she's not an idiot who walks into poles, and Nishikata realizes that she saw him earlier. He tries to defend himself, but she keeps walking, leaving him to school. Then, at school, Takagi keeps teasing Nishikata by touching him, and when she offers him to touch her back, he refuses, not wanting to be seen as a creep. As they continue fooling around, 3 pairs of eyes track them from behind a wall. Mina, Sani, and Yukari are watching. Later, in the bathroom, Yukari can't stop talking about it, and they are curious about what their real relationship could be. Just then, they bump into Takagi in the hallway, and Sani, blunt as ever, asks if she's dating Nishikata. Back in class, Nishikata has a smug look on his face, thinking about his plan to tease her on their way home. Takagi notices and asks him about it, but he brushes her off, hoping she doesn't see through it. As if reading his mind, she casually asks if he wants to walk with her later. He quickly agrees, but realizing that she might realize his plans, he calmly says that he would love to. and she tells him that he can make that decision later. Then, he's cornered by Takao and Kimura, who ask if he's down to play video games after school. Nishikata declines, saying he already has plans. When hearing that, Takao raises an eyebrow, asking if he has plans with his girlfriend, Takagi. Before Nishikata can clarify, Nina strolls by and says that they're not dating, revealing that she already asked Takagi earlier. Once she's gone, Kimura and Takao question why he keeps going home with Takagi, and Nishikata simply says that it's because Takagi asked him to. They then question why she specifically asks him to go home with her, and in that moment, Nishikata stays silent, questioning his relationship with Takagi. When school ends, Takagi brings up the rumors, telling Nishikata that people think she's in love with him and asks if it's because they kept walking home together. Nishikata realizes the reason she's doing this is so he'd be the one to invite her. But for the sake of his master plan, he takes initiative and asks her to walk home with him, to which she agrees. Then, they stop at a vending machine, but all the good juices are gone. Nishikata picks a random one, tries a sip, and instantly regrets it. Still, he holds on to it and starts his master plan. He asks Takagi a question about whether she drinks a gross juice or a delicious one that gives her a fever. He expects her to struggle so he can watch her squirm, but instead of answering, she asks whether he would visit her if she gets sick. He tells her that he would, and she casually picks the juice that will give her a fever, knowing he would visit her. Nishikata then tries again, asking her, would he rather never get an allowance again, or never tease him? Takagi answers without hesitation, saying that she can survive without money as long as she can keep teasing him. She then flips the question on him, asking him whether he would let her disappear forever, or for her to keep teasing him forever. Nishikata panics, realizing Takagi has turned the tables, and answers honestly that he would rather get teased forever, not wanting her to disappear. She grins happily, teasing him for liking to be teased. She then asks him again if he would rather get 0 on every exam or kiss her. Nishikata short-circuits, and while he knows picking the first is dumb, choosing to kiss her is even more dangerous with the amount of teasing that will follow. But still, he picks the kiss while embarrassed. Takagi looks over, and he freaks out again, thinking she's going to actually do it. But it turns out she is just seeing if he's grown taller. They continue walking home, but because of Nishikata's own plan, Takagi keeps asking him would you rather questions. A few days later, Nishikata finds himself in front of a cat, and after watching a documentary about them, he approaches the cat with stanky legs, hoping he could pet them. Just then, Takagi pops up, surprising him and failing his attempt to pet a cat, which disappoints him. However, he's relieved Takagi didn't witness the moment, as her teasing would have been too much to handle. Then, they walk to school together, and they pull up on another cat. While Nishikata tries to pretend not to be interested, Takagi approaches it, and to Nishikata's surprise, she easily pets it. A wave of envy crashes over him, but he pretends not to care, clinging to the shred of dignity that says asking to pet the cat would be a weak move. When she invites him to try, he waves her off with a bravado-filled excuse, trying to act above it all. She needles him, suggesting he's just scared of getting scratched. He takes this chance to pet the cat by saying that he's not scared to get scratched, but his plan fails when Takagi easily believes him, which makes him look excited to pet a cat. She laughs before kindly offering again, and just when he finally caves and admits he wants a try, the cat vanishes, leaving Nishikata sad. Later, during art class, the teacher decides to pair students for a portrait drawing activity. Nishikata ends up with Takagi, and he groans internally as he's not exactly what anyone would call a skilled artist. Trying to avoid her eyes, he keeps his gaze low, but her laughter throws him off. He remembers checking himself in the mirror that morning, so there's no logical reason for her to be laughing, other than her enjoying seeing him squirm. Insecure and annoyed, he makes peace with the fact that his face is nightmare fuel and decides to go for comedic revenge. He sketches Takagi in the most exaggerated, unflattering way he can manage. He then overhears Mina mention that her drawing reflects how she envisions Yukari, so he stores the line in his mental arsenal, ready to defend his work with it if needed. Once finished, he reveals his portrait to Takagi. It's an absolute disaster, something between a bad caricature and an art created by an artist on fentanyl. But instead of being offended, she leans into it, pulling a ridiculous, goofy face and challenging him to take a better look if he wants to capture her properly. He takes the bait and studies her face more seriously, but this only gets him into deeper trouble, as the longer he looks, the more he notices her soft features, her calm expression, and suddenly, his heart starts beating heavier. The moment is shattered when she shows him her portrait of him. He's stunned by the attention to detail, even more so when she includes his signature blush. He protests it, but deep down, he's deeply impressed. The following day, Takagi and a group of classmates gather around a girl reading tarot cards. Nishikata walks by, trying not to get roped into anything weird, but Takagi intercepts him and ropes him into a game of rock, paper, scissors. He's suspicious of her motives, but when she promises to take over his cleaning duty if he wins, he agrees. And against all the odds the gods put against him, Nishikata wins. The win feels monumental, like beating the final boss in a game he never thought he'd finish. True to her word, she helps him clean, and while they work, she brings up fortune-telling. She claims that her fortune reading said she'd do well with her current crush, which catches him completely off guard. Suddenly, she asks him if he has a crush, and he starts panicking over her question, wondering if Takagi likes her. When he realizes how nervous he is, he realizes that he might have a crush on her. Then, she reveals that the reason she asked is because she did a live reading for him as well, and the result matched hers. He's disappointed to hear that, but wonders why he's disappointed over it. Trying to change the topic, he asks what else she asked the fortune teller about. She casually mentions she predicted his move in rock, paper, scissors. He smugly points out that the prediction must have been off since he won, but she tells him that her fortune came true with her losing, which he doesn't understand. The next morning, Nishikata walks into class beaming like he just won the lottery. He's light on his feet, grinning from ear to ear. Takagi immediately calls out the reason behind his good mood and reveals that he knows how his horoscope predicted a lucky day. He's surprised she knows what horoscope he is, and she reminds him that she once wished him a happy birthday, but he refuses to be discouraged. He's convinced this is the day he finally flips the script and defeats her. But by the end of the school day, he's been teased half to death. Takagi racks up 50 wins without breaking a sweat, and Nishikata is left clinging to the last thread of hope. She tells him not to give up just yet, as the day isn't over, and invites him to walk home with her. He agrees, determined to turn the tables before the day ends. As they are leaving, a couple of classmates invite him to hang out and play games. He turns them down without a second thought. As they walk, Takagi asks why he declined, and he blurts out the truth that he wanted to walk home with her instead. The honesty stuns her into silence, and when he notices she's stopped walking, panic sets in. He assumes he's gone too far, and has crossed some unspoken line. He scrambles to walk it back, stammering explanations and excuses, but she just watches him with a neutral expression, which only makes it worse. Embarrassed, he begs her to pretend she heard nothing, and she agrees, but only if he says it again. He starts malfunctioning, and without another word, he bolts. Takagi stays behind for a moment, almost folding to his riz. Then she hops on her bike and rides the rest of the way home with a flustered smile never leaving her face. The following day during class, Takagi couldn't help herself but keep glancing over to Nishikata, still having his words lingering in her ear. Then, during break, Mina approaches her friends with a mysterious envelope in hand and passes it to Sani. Sani inspects it, wondering if it's a love letter. Mina clarifies that it's not and that she wrote it herself. Her friends question the point of writing letters when they could just speak face to face, but Mina insists letters are making a comeback. While she defends the resurgence of pen and paper, Nishikata and his friends observe the group from afar. Takao, never one to keep thoughts to himself, complains about the absurdity of writing letters. Speaking aloud, he deems it an unnecessary chore and goes as far as calling love letters a waste of effort. Sani overhears and decides his opinion deserves a swift correction via physical re-education. Later, back in class, Nishikata finds Takagi also writing letters, and when he opens his textbook, he finds a letter tucked inside. The sight startles him, and Takagi immediately notices his reaction. When she questions him, he quickly denies anything is wrong, though his mind races with possibilities. The idea of a secret admirer floats in his head, but knowing Takagi, he also suspects foul play. His suspicions are confirmed when she openly admits to placing the letter in his book and tells him she expects a reply after school. He hesitates before reading it, thinking it's a love letter, only to discover a simple question of whether he wants to walk home with her. The anticlimax hits hard, and he wonders why she couldn't just ask directly. Takagi explains that she wanted to try the new letter trend herself, and more importantly, wanted to see his reaction. Completely thrown, Nishikata forgets they're still in class and yells in shock, earning a well-aimed chalk missile yeeted by the teacher. Nishikata remembers how years ago, he was late to school after stopping by the staff room to return a handkerchief he'd found on the floor. The teacher wasn't sympathetic and gave him a warning, refusing to hear his explanation. When he finally sat down, Takagi tried to speak with him, but he was too annoyed to listen and quietly blamed the handkerchief's owner for his predicament. Later, during the entrance ceremony, the students were called to the gym. But when they returned to class, Takagi was momentarily missing. Upon reappearing, she challenged him to a guessing game about why he was late. When she guessed correctly about the handkerchief, he reacted loudly, drawing the teacher's wrath yet again.
Daddy, chill.
She then pulled out the handkerchief and thanked him, revealing she'd been the owner all along, which became the first time she teased him. Back in the present, Nishikata continues his workouts, but when he tries doing a handstand, he fumbles the attempt, only to land awkwardly and bang his knee. As he rolls up his pant leg to check the damage, he recalls the injury from that day. Suddenly sentimental, he rushes to his drawer and digs out the very same handkerchief. The next morning at school, he tries to return it to Takagi, but before he can, she mentions there's going to be a new seating arrangement. He asks if she's excited, and she confesses that she is sad and had hoped they'd stay seated next to each other until the end of the year. Then, the seating lottery begins, and to Nishikata's dismay, he ends up far from her. At his new spot, he finds himself next to Mono, who looks absolutely deflated. She sighs upon seeing him, and he immediately suspects it's not because of his own appearance. She confirms his theory by saying she'd been hoping to sit next to Nakai, which she didn't get to do. Meanwhile, Kimura announces to the entire class that he wants to switch seats with anyone willing to take the front row, as he wants to sneak his lunches without the teacher knowing like usual. The teacher shuts him down, saying only those with a legitimate reason may switch, and adds he wants to speak with him later about his snacking disorder. Inspired by Takagi's earlier comment, Nishikata decides to seize the opportunity and lies about having bad eyesight to switch with Kimura. Unfortunately, someone else has already beaten him to the punch, leaving him stuck and disappointed alongside Mono. But then he hears Takagi's voice calling him, and when he looks up, she's sitting next to him. She explains that Mono traded with her to be next to Nakai, and Nakai switched with Kimura because of his supposed eyesight issue. She asks if Nishikata had tried to switch because he wanted to sit with her, which he awkwardly denies. She points out his red face, but doesn't get to tease him as the teacher tells them to open their books. As they get their books out, Takagi asks what Nishikata has been trying to tell her all morning. He finally pulls out the handkerchief and hands it back to her. Along with it, he admits that he's glad they're desk neighbors again, and she responds with a sweet smile, saying she feels the same. That night, while lying in bed, Takagi opens the handkerchief, and a small folded note slips out. She unfolds it and reads a simple thank you from Nishikata. A smile spreads across her face. She flips onto her stomach and hides her face in the pillow, kicking her feet in the air as her quiet celebration of the beautiful moment feels just right. If you watched this anime recap until the end, comment down Teasing Master. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.